This happened a few months ago. I'm Jamie, 32, and I'm a wildlife photographer. I thought a camping trip in an isolated national park in Alaska would be perfect. I needed to escape city life and find inspiration. I set up my tent near a thicket, hoping to catch the northern lights. The campsite felt peaceful, surrounded by tall pines and a shimmering lake. At first, it was just nice to be away from everyone. That changed around midnight. I was looking at some photos when I heard rustling in the bushes. It sounded weird, like it was too deliberate for small animals. I glanced around. It startled me more than it should have. I switched off my lantern, trying to hear better. My heart raced. I felt trapped, like something waited just outside the light. The next day, the unease continued. I hiked along a trail, but felt watched. I thought I saw something move through the trees, but it always vanished before I could see it. My mind kept telling me it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I felt like someone was always around, lurking. Then I found strange symbols carved into the rocks near my camp. They looked old and purposeful, like they had a meaning. I couldn't figure them out. I thought maybe other campers made them, but it felt wrong here. As I got closer, my camera suddenly malfunctioned. I had never seen that happen before. A chill ran through me. It was like the symbols were alive and somehow aware of me. The final night was heavy with dread. I wanted to capture the northern lights, but every step made me feel exposed. The feeling of being watched was worse than before. I was scared and moved faster. Then I saw the shadow again, flitting between the trees. Every time I blinked, it was gone. I hurried back to my tent with shaky hands, feeling like I needed to get out of there. I didn't sleep much that night. When morning came, I quickly packed my gear. I felt a weight in my chest. I wanted to gaze back at the woods one last time, but it was hard to do it. I still couldn't explain the figure, the symbols, or that feeling of dread. It lingered like a fog. As I was about to leave, something flickered at the edge of the trees. I stopped in my tracks. I didn't know if I wanted to investigate or run away. Was it just my mind playing tricks again? I didn't want to stay there any longer, but I also felt drawn to the woods. Whatever it was, it felt like it wanted me to stay. I took a deep breath and turned back to my car. That place haunted me ever since. I still can't shake those experiences. Something linked to the woods won't let me forget. I never went back, and part of me wonders if I should have. A few weeks after returning home, the memories of that trip still haunted me. The symbols, the shadows, and that feeling of being watched shadowed my days. I tried to shake it off, but I felt a pull, a nagging curiosity. What if I had misread everything? What if I was just being irrational? One evening, I decided to look online. Maybe I could find out more about the symbols I saw or what others had experienced in that park. I sat at my desk with my laptop, scrolling through forums and photography blogs, but I didn't find anything concrete. A few campfire stories circulated about hauntings, but nothing specific about the symbols. I was about to close my laptop when I stumbled upon an old article titled "Ancient Symbols of the North." I clicked on it, intrigued. The article discussed various symbols used by indigenous peoples in Alaska. Some represented natural elements, water, earth, but others were said to mark sacred spaces. My gut twisted. Was my campsite one of those spaces? The more I read, the more disturbed I felt. I pushed the laptop away. My mind raced back to the camping trip. I couldn't help but wonder if that's why I felt so uneasy. If I was encroaching on something sacred, something that didn't want me there. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my closest friend, Mark. He wanted to know if I was up for a weekend hike. I hesitated, but ultimately agreed. Maybe nature could ease my restless mind. I could invite him to the park and we could explore my campsite. Perhaps facing it again might finally bring closure. That Friday, the drive to Alaska felt different. I was filled with a mix of dread and excitement. The towering trees seemed taller, and the mountains loomed like giants watching over me. I tried to focus on the scenery, but thoughts of what I experienced kept creeping back. When we arrived at the campsite, I felt a shiver run through me. The trees looked thicker than I remembered, the shadows deeper. I got out of the car, my heart beating faster. Mark set up a small fire while I tried to shake off the unease. As night fell, the chill in the air intensified. "It's beautiful out here," Mark said, glancing up at the stars. "Reminds me of the time we camped back in college." "Yeah, but this place feels different," I admitted. "I don't know how to explain it." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Is this about the symbols you mentioned? Come on, it's just a story." Before I could respond, the air shifted. A sound cut through the night, louder than the crackle of the fire. It was a rustling, just like I remembered. Everything inside me screamed to run. "Did you hear that?" I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. Mark laughed nervously. "Probably just a deer." But I could feel it again. An energy. A presence. I knew it wasn't just an animal. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement among the trees. Something was there, and it was watching us. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. What was out there? I suddenly regretted coming back. Just as I was about to tell Mark, the shadows shifted closer, then everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness. The fire was out, leaving us in a void that swallowed sound and light. I felt Mark beside me, but in that pitch black, I could only hear his breathing, shallow and quick. "Where's the light?" he whispered, panic lacing his voice. "I don't know," I replied, confusion wrapping around my mind like a vice. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket, but my fingers trembled too much. I must have dropped it when... Before I could finish, I heard it again. The rustling, almost as if something was circling us. My instincts kicked in. I told Mark to stay put, but he climbed to his feet, joining me in my desperate search for light. "Let's move toward the car," he suggested, his voice a mix of courage and fear. I nodded, but as we tried to make our way, I felt the ground shift beneath me. A low hum resonated through the ground, as if the earth were vibrating in an unseen rhythm. "Did you feel that?" I asked, glancing around, straining to see anything in the dark. Mark nodded. "It's like a heartbeat." Then, without warning, a light burst in the distance, a pale glow seeping through the trees. Relief hit me, but it was short-lived. The light flickered like a dying bulb. It flashed once, illuminating the forest for a split second, and in that moment I saw it, a figure standing just beyond the reach of the light. My breath hitched. It didn't seem human. It was tall, unnaturally thin, with limbs that bent in an unsettling way. I instinctively grabbed Mark's arm. "Do you see that?" He squinted, his face shifting from confusion to terror. "What the hell is that?" The figure darted deeper into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. The glow vanished completely. I felt a chill creep down my spine. "Let's get to the car," I said urgently as I grabbed Mark's hand and started pulling him in the opposite direction. But the earth beneath us trembled again, and a sudden rush of wind whipped through the trees, sending leaves swirling around us like a storm. "Run!" I shouted. We tore through the underbrush, branches scratching at us as I pushed past. Just as we broke free into the clearing where the car was parked, a voice echoed through the night, low and raspy. It sounded like 1,000 whispering shadows calling out. "Leave! Now! Go!" Mark yelled, throwing open the car door. We jumped inside, slamming the door as the whispers surrounded us. My fingers scrambled to start the engine. "Drive! Just drive!" Mark shouted. The engine roared to life, but before I could shift into gear, the lights flickered again, illuminating the forest. I caught another glimpse, a quick flash of the figure standing by the passenger side, its eyes glowing softly in the darkness. I didn't have time to process what I saw. I slammed my foot down on the gas and we lurched forward. The car bounced along the path as I navigated our escape. My heart raced and I could feel Mark next to me gripping the seat, eyes wide with disbelief. "Did that just happen?" he stammered as we hurtled away. I don't know," I replied, forcing myself to keep my eyes on the road. But I couldn't shake the image of that figure from my mind. What had we stumbled upon? More questions swarmed my thoughts as we raced back to safety, the whispers still echoing faintly in my ears. Then came a sudden crack, as if something had broken in the air. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and that's when my heart dropped. The figure was back, racing after us, faster than before. "Keep going," Mark screamed, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the mirror. We were not alone, and it was not finished with us yet. The engine roared, and I pushed the car harder. The trees blurred past us, dark sentinels closing in on either side. The headlights cut through the gloom, but I felt an unshakable anxiety that the light wasn't enough. "Are we going to make it?" Mark's voice trembled like the rest of him. His hands were balled into fists on his lap, knuckles white. "Yes, we are," I said, though my own confidence was shaky. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the rearview mirror again. The figure was still there, impossibly fast. It flashed in and out of the light like a phantom. "The brake lights!" Mark shouted, panic rising in his tone. "Look!" I slammed my foot on the gas even harder. "We can't stop! We can't!" But I felt the car jerk as the lights flickered and dimmed for a moment. I could hear the engine coughing, sputtering like it couldn't agree with the speed I demanded from it. "Come on!" I pleaded, willing the car to keep going. I couldn't let that thing catch us, because the more I looked back, the more I felt it, an unrelenting gaze that penetrated the dark. "I think it's right behind us," Mark screamed. I dared another glance, and that's when I saw it. The thing was right there, almost beside the car. I felt breath catch in my throat, and I stomped on the pedal again, desperate for distance. Suddenly, the engine sputtered one last time, and the sound of it dying echoed in the night. I pulled the wheel and swerved off the road, crashing through the underbrush before the car jolted to a stop. The silence that followed felt deafening. "What did you do?" Mark shouted, panic overtaking him. He was looking around wildly. "I don't know. The car just—" I cut myself off as I heard it again. The whispering had returned, surrounding us, filling the edges of the forest like an all-consuming fog. "Leave. Now." It echoed, like the chant of some unseen masses. "I can't stay here," Mark almost cried. He wrestled with the door handle. "We have to get out, we have to run." "No," I snapped back, holding him in his seat. "Not yet. If we get out, we're trapped." I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in. Panic surged in my chest like icy fingers. I couldn't explain what was happening, but I could sense an unseen force converging on us, coiling tighter with each second we stayed. Just as I began to rationalize our next move, the headlights flickered back on. For a moment, the brightness revealed twisted trees and shadows, and with that light, I saw something else. "That!" Mark pointed outside. I turned to look, and my breath hitched. There was a figure, not the same one we had seen before, but another. This one stood in the direction from where we came, its body shrouded in a silvery fog, watching without moving. I felt cold dread seep into my bones. "Drive away," Mark begged, but fear rooted me to my seat. An urge pulled at me to understand what I was seeing. I squinted harder. That's when I realized, depicting my own face was a grotesque version of me, an echo twisted in a terrible caricature. Before I could say anything, the figure lifted its hand. The movement sent ripples through the air, and an overwhelming sense of dread flooded me. "Leave," it whispered again. Everything inside me screamed for escape. "Now!" I finally managed to shout. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I threw the car into reverse without thinking, but a loud crack sounded from behind me, followed by the heart-stopping crunch of a branch breaking. That loud snap sent us both into the trembling darkness. Something was coming, and this time it was furious. "Go, go, go," Mark shrieked. I threw the car into drive, but I knew at that moment we were going to have to confront whatever was out there, or it would confront us. The car lurched forward, and I gripped the wheel like it was a lifeline. I could still hear the echoes of that whisper, see the visage of my distorted self. Panic clawed at my throat. It felt like an eternity before the tires caught the gravel again, but as I straightened out, doubt seeped in. Were we still being pursued? "Did it follow us?" Mark gasped, looking back through the rear window. His eyes were wide, and I could see my own reflection in them, fearful and frantic. "I don't know," I admitted, not wanting to look back. Every instinct told me to keep my gaze focused ahead, on the winding road. But what if there was more than just that figure? What if something else lurked in the darkness? The trees on either side loomed closer every second, as if they were walls closing in. I pressed down on the gas once more, feeling the engine's renewed rumble beneath us. "Just keep going," Mark breathed, his voice trembling. "We need to get out of this place." His words stirred something in me, a desperate need to escape. I pushed harder, and the car leaped forward. But out of nowhere the lights flickered again. The shadows seemed to dance menacingly along the edge of the road. "Not again," I shouted, more to the car than anything else. The engine started to sputter once more, a terrible premonition grabbing hold of my heart. "Don't stop. We can't stop," Mark urged, his tone rising. "I can't control it," I yelled back, frustration bubbling over. But I felt it then, a shift in the air. A thick presence loomed just beyond the edges of the light, something I couldn't see but could sense, like electricity crackling through the atmosphere. Then the car made a horrible noise, a grinding sound like metal against metal. I gritted my teeth, steering frantically as I wrestled with the steering wheel. "Look!" Mark shouted, pointing wildly. My stomach dropped as I realized there was more than one figure at the edge of our lights now. Shadows danced along the trees like a macabre puppet show, all of them reaching out with long, spindly fingers. They moved with unsettling grace, gliding between the trunks like they were part of the forest. "Drive past them," he shouted. "Don't let them get closer." I can't," I stammered. The car stuttered again. The shadow figures seemed to pulse, their presence getting closer, more defined. I could almost make out their features. There was a sense of recognition tugging at me, though I couldn't quite grasp what it meant. Just then, a shriek tore through the night, shrill and piercing. "It's not just an echo!" Mark screamed, his voice rising in pitch. "They're here, right here with us." Without thinking, I swerved to avoid a mass that appeared in front of us. The moment felt surreal, like I was caught in a nightmare that closed in on all sides. I had to push forward to escape. But then, just ahead, a faint flicker of light caught my eye. My heart thundered as I strained to see what it was. Another car. "Please be someone," I whispered, praying the figure wasn't just another haunting reflection of myself. The light flickered again, and I leaned forward, determined to reach it. "Don't stop, don't." Mark's voice vanished as the car lurched, the wheels losing grip. We were sliding off the gravel, moving toward the edge of the road. We tipped, and I braced for impact. But instead of a crash, everything went dark as we tumbled into a void, leaving behind that crawling nightmare. Then, silence. I blinked against the sudden brightness that penetrated the darkness. For a moment, I couldn't tell where I was. The cold metal of the steering wheel pressed against my palms, but the sounds of the night seemed distant, muted. "Mark," I croaked, my voice hoarse. There was no response. I glanced around, trying to piece together what happened. The car was upright. A faint light streamed through the windshield, illuminating the trees surrounding us. But the shadows felt different now, almost tranquil, as if they had retreated. "Mark!" I called again, louder this time. Panic clawed at my throat. I needed him. I needed to know he was okay. I turned in my seat. The passenger side was empty. The door was ajar, swinging slightly in the wind. My heart raced as I recalled the moment we toppled. Had he fallen out? A chill crept through my veins. I swung open my door and stepped onto the ground. It was soft, a damp underfoot that was nothing like the gravel road. The air held an uneasy stillness. I looked around. A soft fog rolled in from somewhere, weaving between the trees. The flickering light I had seen before was gone. "Mark," I shouted, my voice breaking the silence like a splash in still water. A hollow echo answered, but no response came. I took a hesitant step away from the car. Memories of those shadow figures rushed back, and I fought the urge to flee, but I couldn't leave without Mark. Then, movement caught my eye. Just beyond a cluster of trees, the fog swirled more thickly. I squinted to see if anyone was there. The familiar knot of dread twisted in my stomach as shadows shifted, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. "Mark!" I yelled again, taking a few shaky steps toward the trees. The ground squished under my feet, each step stirring up earthy scents that mingled with the cold air. Then I saw it. Just beyond the trees, a light bloomed again, a warm golden glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. My legs moved instinctively toward it. "Mark," I called once more, a mix of desperation and hope. And then I heard it. A whisper floated through the air, brushing against my ear like the breath of someone standing too close. It was familiar and horrifying, echoing the notes of that earlier chant. I froze, chills spreading across my skin. "Follow," it urged, and I shivered. "Mark?" I dared to query. No answer. Only the beckoning glow and that eerie voice. I hesitated, but then thought of the figure, of the shadows. Mark wouldn't just disappear. I had to find him. Steeling myself, I decided to follow the light. Walking through the trees felt like stepping through a veil. Each stride took me deeper into the unknown. The fog swirled tighter around me, and as I approached the source of the glow, I saw shapes flickering. They danced around, intangible yet compelling. But just as I reached out to touch the light, everything stopped. The shadows recoiled, and the whisper transformed into a scream. It reverberated through the trees, echoing my own terror. I stumbled back, feeling the panic rise again. "Mark!" I shouted, fighting against the pull of the light. There was no way I could let it consume me. But just then, I felt a presence behind me. Someone was there. "Mark?" I turned slowly, and my breath hitched. That's when I saw it. I blinked in disbelief. The figure before me was cloaked in darkness, its features obscured. A feeling of dread washed over me, but my heart leaped at the possibility that it was Mark. "Mark?" I whispered, a fragile hope threading through my words. The figure didn't answer. It remained still, almost watching. I took a step closer, straining to make out any detail. Then it shifted. A subtle motion that sent my heart racing again. "Is it you?" I asked, my voice trembling. I could barely hear it over the whispering wind. The presence seemed to draw closer, but the light behind me flickered again, illuminating the trees in a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the chill in the air. And then, that familiar voice spoke. "Help me." It didn't sound like Mark. A chill shot through me as a shiver of realization coursed down my spine. The voice was deeper, menacing in a way that sent my instincts screaming. I took a step backward. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my throat dry. The figure stepped forward, just enough for a sliver of light to touch the edges of its face. Eyes gleamed with unnatural brightness. They weren't human. Heart pounding, I turned to run. I dashed back toward the car, the ground feeling unsteady beneath my feet. My mind raced with thoughts of what I had just seen. Was that truly Mark's voice I had heard, or had something else taken his place? The fog thickened around me, obscuring my path and making it difficult to breathe. Just as I thought I might escape, the light flickered out entirely. Darkness swallowed me in an instant. I halted, panic clawing at my throat. "Mark, where are you?" I cried, feeling frantically along the trees for stability. Hands brushed against bark until, finally, I found the familiar cool metal of my car. I fumbled for my phone, praying for a glimmer of light. It flickered to life, casting weak beams into the gloom. I scanned the area around me. Nothing. The trees loomed like sentinels, shadows peering back in a mockery of comfort. I tried calling again, but my voice felt small, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Suddenly I heard it again. The whisper. "Close this time." "Follow," it urged, but this time it was different. It was layered with distress, a sound wrapped in fear. I shivered, not knowing if it was Mark or something else pulling at me. "Is that you, Mark?" I asked, desperate for an answer. No response came, only a heavy silence. The light behind the trees flickered dimly again, urging me forward. But I could not. I felt an unseen weight pressing me backward. The pressure rose in my chest. I was running out of time. Then, as the darkness thickened, I noticed something on the ground, a small flashlight, glinting faintly in the dying light. I bent down to grab it, my heart racing in anticipation. Maybe it would help me find him. Just as I picked it up, the whisper turned to a growl, and I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet. "What is happening?" I murmured, glancing over my shoulder once more. That's when I heard it. A loud rustle, branches cracking as if something big was shifting right behind me. My blood ran cold. I whirled around, my heart racing, ready to face whatever it was, but nothing was there. The stillness returned, even more unnerving. I gripped the flashlight tightly, knowing that whatever was stalking me was closer than I dared to believe. In that moment, I made my choice. I had to confront the shadows. "Show yourself!" I shouted, the challenge echoing through the oppressive woods, and there it was again, Mark's voice, this time coming from deeper within the trees. "Help me." I held my breath, the air thick with fear. "Mark," I yelled again, my voice shaking. I couldn't think. I only felt the urge to move toward his voice, no matter how ominous it sounded. With the flashlight gripped tightly in my hand, I made my way deeper into the trees. Each step was heavy, the ground soft and treacherous beneath my feet. The fog seemed to swirl around my ankles, and I firmly believed something was watching me. I flicked the flashlight on, its beam piercing through the mist. I pointed it toward the sound. "Mark," I called once more, frantically sweeping the light across the forest. The darkness bent and shifted with the beam, creating ghostly shapes that danced just out of reach. I strained my ears, hoping to hear something, anything that would guide me. Then the whispering started again, louder this time, filling my mind with a sense of urgency. "Help. I need you." It felt so real. My heart raced with adrenaline. "I'm coming," I shouted, pushing through branches that snagged at my clothes. I had to find him before it was too late. But the voice was different now, more desperate, as if it were in genuine pain. I stumbled forward, the beam of light revealing a clearing ahead. My foot caught on a root, and I fell, my hands grazing the cold, damp earth. I gasped, but quickly pushed myself up. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows at the edge of the clearing. My pulse quickened as I shined the flashlight in that direction, illuminating a figure half hidden behind a tree. It was tall and angular. "Mark," I whispered, hope igniting again. As I stepped closer, the figure slowly turned. My breath caught. It wasn't Mark. The face was a twisted version of a human's, features sharp and hollow, and the eyes, I could hardly comprehend what I saw. They glimmered with a predatory gleam, and I knew instantly I was in the presence of something unnatural. "Help me," it croaked, repeating the familiar plea, but in a voice that sent ice through my veins. "Get away from me." I stumbled backward instinctively, my flashlight beam flickering as panic coursed through me. But as I turned to run, the shadows around me seemed to shift. The whisper morphed into something akin to laughter that echoed through the trees, drowning out my own racing thoughts. I felt trapped, cornered. I sprinted back toward the path to my car. The growl followed me, deep and guttural, rattling through the air. Adrenaline surged, fueling my escape. But the path was gone. Instead, I faced a wall of darkness, trees looming like silent predators. My heart hammered as I clutched the flashlight tighter, trying to remember the way back. Then I heard it again. "Help me." A gut-wrenching thought crossed my mind. What if Mark was truly lost out there, calling for me? But wasn't that voice tainted by something sinister? For a moment I hesitated, torn between the plea and my own survival instincts. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in pitch black, and I realized the shadows weren't just around me. They were within me too. Panic surged once more as I fumbled for my phone, praying for its light, for anything to cut through the void. In my frantic movements, I felt something cool and solid graze my fingers. It was too smooth, too cold. I stopped, fear coursing through me, unsure of what I had just touched. Then I heard the unmistakable whisper again, but this time it carried a different weight altogether. "Join us." The chilling invitation left my mind racing. A new dilemma flooded my thoughts. Who, or what, was waiting for me in the shadows? I stood frozen, my mind racing with fear and confusion. The whisper hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping around me, squeezing tight. I could barely breathe. "Join us." The words resonated deep in my chest, luring me closer to the darkness. My instinct screamed for me to move, to flee, but something made me hesitate. I needed to know if Mark was in danger, or if he was somehow involved with these entities. I flicked my phone's flashlight to life, the small beam cutting through the thick blackness. The icy light revealed a path, narrow and barely discernible, winding deeper into the trees. Taking a hesitant step forward, I felt the ground shift beneath me, and nerves crawled up my spine. "Mark!" I yelled, my voice echoing against the trees. I needed to sound brave. Even I could hear the tremor in my tone, though. Each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself pulled me down. I followed the path, my heart racing not just with fear, but with a strange anticipation. The trees loomed overhead like sentinels, their branches swaying in a wind that didn't exist. Then, to my right, a glint of something caught my eye. I aimed my phone's light, revealing a small clearing. My breath hitched. 3 figures stood there, barely visible in the shadowy shapes beneath the branches. They were backlit by a pale glow, elongated and twisted, much like the creature I had seen before. "Help us," they echoed together, their voices harmonizing, sending a shiver straight down my spine. It was almost melodic, harmonizing with the laughter that still danced on the wind. I stepped back, my heart pounding like a drum. "Leave me alone," I shouted, taking a few steps backward. If I could just make it back to my car, I could call for help. But it was like the forest was reshaping itself, swallowing the way I had just come. "Why don't you join us?" one of the figures said, stepping into the light. Its face was utterly featureless, except for a gaping mouth stretching wide, like it wanted to consume me whole. I turned, running with every ounce of strength. The flashlight flickered again, weakening with every frantic movement. My breath was ragged. I could feel the shadows swirling behind me, as if they were alive. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded nearby. I skidded to a stop, glancing back. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I wasn't sure if I should keep running or find a place to hide. I could hear their laughter weaving through the trees, chilling laughter that wrapped around me like an eerie embrace. "Don't leave us," the voice called, playful yet frightening. "We can help you find Mark." That stopped me cold. The fear coursed through my veins, but desperation mingled with it. What if they could lead me to him? "Where is he?" I yelled out, trying to keep my voice steady. "What have you done with him?" The figures paused, their heads tilting eerily to one side. "We only want to play," they chorused, and I could see glimmers of teeth in the dim light. Without hesitating, I bolted again, unsure of where I was headed, but knowing I had to escape. As I sprinted through the trees, a thought began to form in my mind. I couldn't succumb to their trickery. I had to be smart, Then, amid the chaos, I stumbled upon something half buried beneath the leaves, a piece of fabric. I knelt down, trembling as I picked it up. It was torn and stained, but the unmistakable pattern matched Mark's jacket. Panic surged anew. "Mark," I shouted, clenching the fabric tight. I had to find him. Something terrible was happening, and I was growing more convinced of it by the second. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath me, and a distant, almost rumbling growl echoed through the trees, making my blood run cold. I wasn't alone. A new threat loomed closer. I took off, propelled by a fresh surge of dread. The memory of the figures remained vivid in my mind, their faces obscured, yet glaring in cruelty. "Mark," I shouted again, my voice cracking against the oppressive silence of the woods. I could feel them watch me, their dark intentions swirling like fog around my feet. The shadows shifted as I plunged deeper into the forest, branches clawing at my skin. The strands of trees seemed to weave tighter, creating a maze of darkness and confusion. I stumbled, trying to regain my bearings, but panic made it hard to think. Was I veering off course, or was the forest deliberately closing in? I focused on the fraying fabric in my grip. It felt like tethering myself to hope, a reminder that I wasn't truly alone, that Mark was out there somewhere. But then, I heard it. The whispering again, more desperate than before. "Join us. Help us." My heart raced as I understood their call wasn't just for Mark. It was for me, too. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I questioned if they were the reason for my feelings of dread during my first visit. What if they'd been waiting for me all along, and my journalistic curiosity had led me straight into their web? "No!" I yelled, shaking my head. "You won't have me." But I could feel the weight of their gaze, 1,000 eyes watching with twisted delight. My feet pushed harder, driven by survival instincts. I burst into another small clearing, the flickering glow of moonlight cutting through the trees. The light grounded me momentarily as I scanned my surroundings. Then I saw it, a broken wooden sign half buried in leaves. The words faded but still legible. "Sacred ground." A knot twisted painfully in my stomach. This was where I had camped, where the symbols had marked the land as something more than just wilderness. Suddenly, the air thickened with energy, and I felt a shudder beneath my feet. "Mark!" I called out, emotion pouring from me. A volley of whispers responded, reverberating around me, mingling with an unsettling laugh. They were closing in. From behind a veil of mist, a shadow roiled, taller and more defined than the shapes I had encountered before. Panic surged through me, urging me to run, yet I couldn't turn away. "You can't keep him," I shouted, trying to drown out their words swirling around me. "It's too late," the entity hissed, its voice echoing with a multitude of tones. "He has joined us." I felt sick. No, he would never. The thought shattered my resolve, and I pressed my palms against my ears, trying to block the harrowing laughter enveloping me. Then came a faint cry. "Jamie." It pierced through the chaos, a thread of familiarity and despair. I straightened, adrenaline flooding my bloodstream as I darted toward the edge of the clearing. It came again, his voice pleading within the forest. "Help me!" "Mark!" I shouted desperately, racing forward. I followed the sound, pushing against the weight of the darkness that threatened to pull me back. My heart hammered as I burst through another line of trees into yet another dimly lit clearing. And there he was. Mark lay crumpled at the base of a massive oak, surrounded by the spiraling fog. Relief surged through me momentarily, but it quickly turned to dread as I noticed the two shadowy figures hovering near him, their elongated limbs reaching out. "No," I gasped, charging forward with everything I had. I felt a resistance mounting against me like the earth was clawing back, but I couldn't let them take him. "Get away from him." The figures turned toward me, their featureless faces glimmering in the low light. "Why not join us, Jamie?" They cooed in a melodic cadence that sent chills down my spine. "It's more fun together." I felt both Mark's presence and the weight of the forest around me, the hints of 1,000 lost souls whispering from the trees. "No!" I screamed. "Mark, wake up! Please, we have to get out of here!" As if pulled by an unseen force, Mark stirred, blinking rapidly as though breaking free from a trance. "Jamie?" His voice was hoarse, but the connection sent a jolt of hope through me. "Is that you?" "I'm here. Just hold on." I reached out for him, but the figures began to close the gap. "Mark, get up!" With a final surge of adrenaline, I lunged for Mark, wrapping my arm around his shoulder as I pushed against the pull of the shadows. The figures recoiled slightly, their laughter morphing into frustrated hisses. "Leave," I shouted, reflexively guiding Mark to his feet. "We're leaving together." The energy surged around us, screams and laughter wail echoing in the night. I pulled Mark along as we stumbled backward, heading toward the edge of the clearing and rushing toward the path where I first entered this nightmare. As we broke free, the whispers turned to furious shouts, a cacophony of rage reaching out after us. "You can't escape," they cried in unison. "You are with us." I didn't look back as we surged into the embrace of the darkened woods. The trees closed in, but we pressed on, hearts pounding in rhythm. The distant sounds of laughter muffled into background noise as we burst through the tree line into open air by the road. But we weren't safe just yet. The presence remained, lingering like a spectre in the shadows behind us. "Get in!" I gasped as I dove for the passenger door of the car, and Mark stumbled inside behind me, his face pale yet resolute. I slammed the door shut and turned the key, praying for the engine to roar to life one last time. The pounding of my heart filled my ears as the headlights flickered and the engine sputtered to life. We both shot a wary glance toward the tree line, dreading what might emerge. "I thought you were gone," Mark panted, gripping the handle tightly. "Let's just go," I yelled, slamming my foot down on the gas. The tires screamed as we tore away from the clearing, propelled forward into the black night. Yet, as we cruised down the winding road, a lingering darkness surrounded the edges of the trees, whispering promises of return. I glanced in the rearview mirror, bracing for one last glimpse. The shadows swirled, shapes transforming in the distance, and just like that, they melted back into the woods without ever revealing their true forms. We sped toward the horizon, and despite the fear still thrumming in my veins, an uneasy quiet settled in the car, a testament to our struggle and survival. I glanced sideways at Mark, who stared intently ahead, his expression a mix of disbelief and exhaustion. Whatever had happened in those woods would be a story told in hushed, fearful breaths. But deep down, I knew the questions lingered. What were those figures? What did they want? And what part of that darkness would remain with us long after we escaped? I took a breath, the weight of the outside world pressing in again. The night felt more silent now, save for the steady thrum of the engine. As we drove further from that place, it felt clear that some shadows never truly disappear. They linger, waiting, just beyond the reach of light.